Teachers, what's the funniest answer you've gotten from a student that technically wasn't wrong? Story 1. Not a teacher, but a witness. In high school history class, the teacher asked, "What was the peace treaty that ended World War II?" This was a trick question because there wasn't a single treaty that ended the war. This one kid blurted out, "The Manhattan Project." The teacher laughed so hard, he went and got the other history teacher and had the kid tell him the answer too. This reminds me of high school when I had this pretty attractive history teacher. She was talking about jewels or something at a museum, and I blurted out, "Mrs. Blank, can I show you some real nice jewels?" And everyone burst out laughing, and the teacher got very red and flustered and embarrassed, and I looked confused because I meant I would show her big diamonds and rubies, like to jokingly woo her. But the class and the teachers took it as if I was referring to my genitals. Story time. In high school, we had a history teacher that everyone insisted was perverted, but I never saw it. So I was all, "You guys are crazy, he's fine." Being the immature sophomore that I was part of the group of friends who would just poke each other in the side at inopportune times, for the lulz or something. A friend of mine, let's call her D, could not control her reactions to save her life. We were sitting next to each other in the middle of the front row. I reached to poke D, who then lets out a short but really high-pitched "eep" in front of the class. The teacher looks me dead in the eyes and says in a very loud and frustrated teacher voice, "Relatively objective, stop fingering D." For years, I insisted that it was unfortunate wordplay, but then I finally concluded, hey, maybe he knew how that was going to be taken. Story 2. Not a teacher, but I remember something I did when I was in grade 2. The student teacher took us into a private room one by one for eye exams. I've never taken an eye exam before, and it wasn't really explained to me what was happening. I was just sat down and asked to read the first line of the chart, then the second, then the third. By the time it came to the fourth line, I was like, "That's too small for me to read. 1 minute, please." Then I got up, walked over to the board, and started reading the letters. Apparently that's not how you do eye exams. Similar thing happened to me. They took us into a room to test our eyes, so I left my glasses in the classroom. After a couple lines, they recommended glasses, so I went and grabbed them. They looked at me like I was crazy. "Hey man, you wanted to test my eyes, not my glasses." I did the same thing. I had an awful eye doctor who messed up my prescription, so for years I could see better without my glasses than with them. The school decided to test us one day, and I couldn't see the board out of my really bad eye, let alone any letters. They proceeded to chew me out about not wearing my glasses and wouldn't let me explain. Story 3. I've got a story from my fiance's childhood. They were testing her intelligence, or awareness, and showed her an image with a TV in a room. The TV was turned on, showing a cartoon, and had a plant on top of it. Question: what's on the television? Answer: a plant. Apparently, she just kept insisting in utter frustration until the administrator bothered to look at the image and not the answer sheet. Reminds me of a friend's story. I don't know about public schools, but for sure at private schools, you get a little quiz-type test with a teacher before they confirm you're ready for kindergarten. One of the things he had to do was identify pictures. He aced the section except for the picture of the airplane. He looked and thought hard and then burst into tears saying, I don't know what that is." Turns out his dad worked for Boeing and he was trying and failing to discern exactly what model plane the super generic picture was depicting. During a similar test, I was completely sure the color I was supposed to identify was dark blue, not black. I was so insistent that the tester got a few other people to look at it, and they decided that it really was a very dark blue. Story 4. Another story you guys might like from the same classroom was going over tastes and food-related descriptions. I brought up the word sticky and gave some examples, then asked if any of the 35-plus students could think of more foods that are sticky. One quieter kid raised their hand, and with the most serious look on their face, "Come." Me. What was that? Mortified. Student. Come. Me. No idea what to do or say. Another student. "Teacher, come." Made chewing motion with mouth. Me finally realizing that they were saying gum because the G and CK often sound the same to Koreans. Yes, gum, right. I laughed for the 10 whole minute break after that class and still have no idea how I didn't while in front of the room. I did the same thing when I was little and still not fluent in English. Teacher said, "Which phrases can you make with a beat?" She was looking for something like beat up or beat at. I was reading a lot of stuff in English on the internet and said, without thinking much, beat the crap out of it. So proud of such a long phrase I had achieved. I was sent out of class. Story 5. Elementary school kid saw the answer key. He swore he came up with answers may vary all on his own. What's sad is when I had to grade a first semester chemistry test once at university that was made for the medical students. I don't remember if the medical students were in the first semester too. They just took the test together with the first semester chemistry students, but had an alternative version anyway. Thing is, the grading sheet with the right answers was leaked beforehand. One student wrote the correct answer down and then wrote 1 point for every correct formula underneath. How do you finish school without walking in front of a car if you are that darn stupid? In high school, classes were in Spanish. A teacher was angry about people copy-pasting online material for homework. She claimed one essay even contained a click here if you want to know more about Tutankhamun. One of my classmates started laughing, and the teacher told him, "You shouldn't be laughing. You didn't even realize your essay was in Portuguese." I wish I was making this up. Story 6. In a class that deals with electricity, I asked the students to name a good conductor. Leonard Bernstein. As a music teacher, this brings me great joy. That's great. It starts with an earthquake. Asked, what is the moral of the story? The little engine that could. Answered, don't pick up hitchhikers. To refresh your memory, the engine had trouble getting up the hill because he had taken on several more passengers due to their train breaking down. Also the moral, perseverance, believe in yourself, don't give up. If I've learned anything from TV, it's that if you pick up a hitchhiker, they're either a red rummer, a ghost, or a hoopy frood. Story 7. Not a teacher, but someone told me this. What side of the road do people in France drive on? Miss, they drive on both sides. Oh man, this reminds me of the time I tried to find an elevator at the Louvre. I found one, but it only went to lower levels, and I was trying to go up a level. I saw some museum employees and asked if they knew where there was an elevator to go up. They took me to the same elevator. I was confused and asked, but does it go up? They were like, yes, elevators go up and down. Rolled their eyes and walked away. They drive on the right side, technically correct everywhere. Story 8. I teach forensic science. We were going to be using iodine to fume fingerprints. Iodine vapor is no joke, so I terrify the students and use only 2 volunteers with goggles and respirators at the chemical hood. But we still all go over the MSDS, PPE, and equipment. I spent maybe 5 minutes talking about everything, and the chemical hood to my class of 30. Towards the end, so someone asked me, what is a hood? A hand shoots up. Yes, student. It's like the place where you grow up. I facepalm. The class laughs, and I'm unable to pivot his answer at the moment. He's on the autism spectrum and wasn't trying to be funny. Story 9. The question, a man has to get a fox, a chicken, and a sack of corn across a river. He has a rowboat, and it can only carry him and one other thing. If the fox and the chicken are left together, the fox will eat the chicken. If the chicken and the corn are left together, the chicken will eat the corn. How does the man do it? Students answer, let the chicken eat the corn and let the fox eat the chicken, then bring the fox over. The question is, why does the cabbage require a single spot? Is this a survival game or is it one very large cabbage? Story 10. Teaching English in Korea goes over vocabulary words. Dozen, egg family. Same kid a month or so later. Evolution, monkey level up. Reminds me of an anecdote I heard in another thread. An Asian guy was grocery shopping in America, but couldn't remember the English word for chicken. To remedy the situation, he grabbed an egg, walked up to a cashier, held up the egg and asked, "Where is mother?" As someone who once stood at a butcher shop mooing at the meat in an attempt to get them to understand I wanted to buy beef, when I didn't know so much as the word cow, I totally respect this dude. Story 11. Okay, so this story totally doesn't translate to English, but I'll give it a shot anyway. In German, there's this little drawing game called Das Haus vom Nikolaus, consisting of drawing a house without lifting the pen or drawing the same line twice. Well, the act of drawing something without lifting your pen is called in einem Zug zeigen, which literally translates to drawing in a train. So yes, one kid actually drew a house on a train. We have the same game in America, but I don't think it's called anything in English. Impossible puzzle. Only 0.00001% of people can solve this. Can you? Story 12. I wrote an exam where the question was, can you name 3 models of DNA replication? She wrote, no. I mean, that was a bad question writing on your part. For those saying that something like name 3 types of DNA replication would still result in the student writing no, you should recognize that this is equivalent to leaving the question blank with the original wording. It was a valid answer to the question, it's not a valid response to the above rewording. It was so, and I realized it after I saw her response. I was like, well, I guess I could have worded that differently. Story 13. I worked in a special needs class for a year, and there was one kid with a textbook case of Asperger's syndrome. Very bright, very tough nut to crack. I tried to tell him a corny joke once, and he was not having it. Why did the chicken cross the road? He likely had business over there, or was compelled by force. Well, okay, easily my favorite memory of that class. My friend is also autistic, has led to similar punchlines to the classic corny jokes. Why don't people play poker in the jungle? Because the undiscovered tribes who inhabit the jungles have had no contact with Western culture. Therefore, they would never have heard of any game called poker, let alone know how to play it. Reminds me of Louis C.K.'s daughter. Story 14. On a 3rd grade Charlotte's Web quiz, give 2 pieces of evidence that support this statement. Charlotte was a good friend to Wilbur. She comforted him, and she didn't let him become a pig. You know what I don't get about that story? Why is the pig the one who becomes famous? The real news is the freaking super genius spider who knows how to think critically and write in English. Who cares what it thinks about the pig? I want to know his thoughts on the origins of reality. Thank God we don't live in a world where talentless pigs hog the limelight. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of this video and have a wonderful day. Story 15. Teaching grade 5, students were fooling around during group work, so I said sarcastically, "Do I need to stand here and watch you do your work?" To which the student responded even more sarcastically, "Well, you don't have to stand, you can grab the chair and sit." I can't remember which grade it was, but probably 2nd or 3rd. Teacher was asking something relatively simple, and no one wanted to or knew the answer. What's going on here? There should be hands up like trees in the forest. Maybe this is a logging area, said the joker of our class. Story 16. I teach English as a second language at a university in China. The topic in class was the effect of sleep on study. After introducing the phrase, pulling an all-nighter, I asked the students to give some advice on how they can stay awake in class after they pull an all-nighter. Student, take some cocaine. Me, give students an odd look. Excuse me? Student, yes, like in Coca-Cola, coffee, tea. Me, pauses for a moment, now understanding exactly what he meant, but prompting him, cocaine? Student realizes what he has done. Oh, shoot, I mean caffeine. Story 17. As an EA, I have a group of 2nd graders who have a worksheet about the main idea and detail. In the instructions, they were told to circle the main idea and underline the details. One child returned the paper to me very promptly, having underlined the phrase, the main idea, and having circled the details in the instruction. She knew exactly what she was doing when she turned it in. She's a clever one. She did just fine when I asked her to complete the assignment as expected. Story 18. In 7th grade on a test, the question was, why do some people see some technology as positive and others see the same technology as a problem? And a kid simply put, because some people are Amish. I remember in year 3 we had to answer a logic question about why there might be an uneven amount of shoes at the door. I'd recently watched Titanic for the first time, so decided to write, one person might be a one-legged prostitute. It helped that my mom was a parent helper that day. I mean, why else would there be an uneven number of shoes? Story 19. Phys ed teacher here. I always wear shorts teaching. Parent-teacher conferences roll around. A grade 1 student comes up to me with her parents. Mr. Famous 1187, I've never seen you wear pants before. I've never responded quickly to a comment before in my life to clear that up. Reminds me of when my wife worked in an undisclosed location women's shelter. My daughter wanted to see where mommy worked, but we could never go. I was picking up my daughter from school when she said, in the middle of the crowded school hall, "Daddy, can we finally go visit mommy in the shelter?" Story 20. Not a teacher, but I work with kids. Trying to delicately explain to a 3-year-old why she should be kind to her mommy. You shouldn't say those mean things to mommy when she's sick. Who looks after you when you're sick and makes you feel better? The doctor. Well, shoot. Story 21. I'm a teacher in Canada and told the kids to name me 5 U.S. states, and their row could go out for recess first. Boy raises his hand and says, "Rattlesnake?" What? Oh, snakes. No, states. Name 5 states. Same kid. T-bone? You're naming steaks? States. States. Resource teacher was in the room and we were crying and laughing. Gas, liquid, solid, plasma, Bose-Einstein condensate. Story 22. I teach English in Japan. When teaching my students, I ask, what do we say when someone is being too loud? One smart aleck says, shut up forever. More like, forever. I had never said this. No clue where he learned it either. I nearly lost my marbles, but he wasn't wrong. The correct answer is, be quiet, please, which I told him was more polite. He just grinned as if he knew, but didn't care. Smart kid. I'll miss him when I change jobs. Story 23. Not a teacher, but something my brother answered for homework. My brother was in year 1, and his homework was to draw a balloon blown up. He drew a picture with lots of squiggly shapes spread out across the paper. He took it as the balloon blew up, like a bomb, so he drew the leftovers of an exploded balloon. His teacher loved it and gave him full marks. Story 24. I've taught English in Korea and Japan, and while maybe not that funny, one student who wanted to say something like afterwards or in the end wrote, the after was here. I stopped for a moment and just stared off into space after reading that. I tried so hard and got so far, but the after was here. It didn't really matter. Story 25. I teach English to Vietnamese kids. I asked, what is the population of Vietnam? The kid quickly surveyed the room and said, more than 15. This guy is going places. This makes me so happy. I work with a guy whose name is Win-Win. He made a shirt that says, all I do is win-win-win. Story 26. I asked, when is the time you have used integrity? He wrote down, I wash my hands after going to the bathroom, even if no one is in there. I don't think anyone I work with has any of this kind of integrity. I hope you don't work in the food industry. Story 27. I once drew a woolly mammoth picture because I couldn't remember the name of it for a quiz question in science class. I got the point for it. Better than only half a mammoth. Story 28. Not a teacher, but a fellow student once answered, in the head, to the question, where was JFK shot, instead of the intended answer of Dallas. I mean, he was also shot in his car. I feel like this one in particular you can get away with. Story 29. I was teaching kindergartners about needs versus wants, and I showed pictures of things, and we talked about why it was or wasn't. After a picture of a puppy came up, everyone but one kid said want, so I asked him to explain the answer. He just says, but what if you're blind? Good answer. You win. Story 30. College professor teaching developmental psychology. At the end of the semester, I asked all the students to write down the most interesting or important thing they learned. One wrote, babies are stupid and old people still bone. It's not wrong, kinda covers the lifespan. Story 31. Teaching English to middle schoolers in Korea. Asked, okay, what's another way you can express surprise in English? After going over expressions like, no way, are you serious? Are you kidding me? Kid yells from the back of the room. I guess we'll never know. Story 32. I can finally answer one of these. Student is reading a science magazine during a bit of downtime. Student, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yo, mister, you mean to tell me pollen is like flower cum? Me, sort of. Student, man, I'd be getting that stuff all in my face. Story 33. This reminds me of my nephew when he was about 3. We dropped his mom, my sister, off at work, where she met a colleague outside and went in with him. Back at home, my nephew reported to everyone that he'd seen mommy go away with a man. Story 34. I asked a 3-year-old what love was for Valentine's Day card to his parents. His response, maybe love is what tornadoes need. We call him the professor because he teaches us new things every day. Story 35. My first grade class was learning the word powerful. Kids come up with examples of powerful things and people, like elephants and Superman. Then one boy said, babies are powerful because they can cry and get whatever they want. Story 36. English as a second language teacher. I had my students do an activity where they had to give directions based off of a map and situations I had chosen. The final question was more complex, and one of my students wrote, way too difficult. Take a cab. Story 37. My dad used to coach basketball and was trying to get the kids into a 2-to-3 zone. He yelled out to one kid in particular who was in man-to-man, what defense are we playing? Kid slaps the floor and says, tough defense. Story 38. I'm a white guy teaching English as a second language in Asia. My students were tasked with complete the simile. The old man's hair was as white as... One student asked if she could write down my name. Story 39. Why are you late? The bell went off before I got here. Why are you late? I had trouble with my bike. What was the trouble? I didn't get on it early enough. Story 40. Not the teacher, but witnessed this in class. Sociology professor. Why do you conform? Student. It has always been my goal in life to blend in. Professor, no more questions for you. Story 41. In nutrition class at CC, the teacher asks, what's one of the first things you throw out of the window when you drink alcohol? This kid just mumbles, standards. Story 41. Not a teacher, but a friend of mine couldn't remember what country wasn't a part of the UK on a test, so she put Mexico. Story 43. Me, the quiz tomorrow will be on... Student. Paper. Well, it's better than stone tablets, eucalyptus leaves, and blood ink. Story 44. Teacher, I need a pencil. Where do the pencils live? I have a bucket of sharpened pencils for them to use. Pennsylvania? Story 45. Name something living. Fox. Name something non-living. Fox poop. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.